In the 4th century, a Chinese missionary under the Shang dynasty named Hu Shen came to America, who are the East Yi, meaning the Black Chinese. When the Chinese arrived, they encountered the Olmecs, who had already been living in the land. The Chinese considered the Black Olmecs as the descendants of the Black Chinese people, because Hu Shen's people settled and mixed with the Olmec, and they produced the original Aboriginal Olmecs. And they gave that to the lower kingdom, to the Aborigines, and the Aborigines called the land Mu Shang, which is a combination of the Olmec and Aramaic word Mu, which means one, and the Chinese word Shang, named after Wei Shang. You know, there was a province in China today called Chang, and that is the site of the only Chinese pyramids. Muzhang became Mixian and eventually became Mexican or Mexico. The Aboriginals called themselves Mexicans, and they remixed the Olmecs and resulted in a tribe called the Hopi. And the Hopi clan was taught all the secrets of the Dogon and given the secrets to the stars several hundred years later. And the Dogon is one of the most well-known tribes out in Africa for knowing so much about astronomy that people to this day can't figure out how they were able to figure out the stars. But hey, the great civilizations have been here for a long time. The Hindu East Indians arrived in Mexico, and they bred with the Mexicans and produced a Mongoloid tribe type like the Inuit and the Eskimo. And remember, they migrated far north to Canada and Alaska. Out of the Mexican, and also came the Aztec, the Incas, Toltec, Mixtec, and the Mayans. They were called the 5 barbarian nations. Unfortunately, we get these names that are given to us by colonizers, and it's just unfortunate, but they weren't barbaric. They just were different. The Mayans rejected their Olmec ancestry and gravitated towards their Chinese ancestors, and they began practicing human sacrifices. And that's when the Mayans got banished by the original Olmecs, who were told to leave or be destroyed. The Mayans relocated and sailed to East Asia. The Mongols of Southeast Asia became known as Angkor. Sound familiar? Like Angkor Wat? Today the Angkors no longer go by that ancient name. Their modern day name is Cambodian. Yes, the Cambodians are really the Native Americans that were banished. This is why the ruins in Cambodia are identical to the ruins of the Mayan Empire. History claims that the Mayan civilization just vanished. The word Maya means vanish because it seemed as if they just disappeared overnight. This ethnic group didn't just simply vanish overnight. They simply packed up and moved to the other side of the planet. The Red Indian is a result of mixing Olmec and Chinese. This is why you have some Native Americans with dark skin and Negroid features, and some with light skin and Mongoloid features. Okay? Olmecs were indigenous Americans. Chinese were immigrants. Mexican Aborigines who were the combination of the Olmec and Chinese. The East Indians that came here were the immigrants as far as the tribes in North America. The tribes in North America were a result of Olmec and Mexicans. However, some of the Mexicans continued to mix with their Chinese and they produced the yellow tribes like the Pueblo and the Manso. The yellow tribes mixed in with each other and produced Chinook, Tutani, Chumash, and the Oyanuk, and the others. Tribes broke off from each other and produced even more tribes that settled in California. The darker skinned tribes were able to retain much of the Olmec bloodline, like the Arapaho, Blackfeet, Cheyenne, Apache, Mandan, Pawnee, and Shoshone. In the 15th century, all of this changed. The Europeans arrived for the first time, and the Spanish, the British, the Italian, the French, and the Portuguese. Then, of course, the Europeans mixed in with all of the tribes, the black, the yellow, and the red, and they produced even more tribes. Today, you will find white Native American tribes, but the tribes did not wish to mix with the Europeans were destroyed. The Incans were destroyed by the Spanish, who stole their culture. They were given the name Hispanic. The term was popularized, and some even say coined by Ronald Reagan. As far as the darker tribes of the black tribes, the Olmecs migrated into a different direction. One group migrated to the eastern islands near the Bermuda Triangle and settled the islands of Jamaica. Yeah, Olmecs and Jamaica, definitely some history there. Haiti, Bahamas, Trinidad, Barbados, these also were some of the areas that the Olmec ancestors went off to. The Olmec began to set up settlements on these islands and became as the Arawak. These were the people that Christopher Columbus encountered. The Spanish and the British mixed with the Arawak, and the Olmecs of Haiti went back to practicing their old African roots and began practicing their religion, or Yoruba, which was mistakenly called voodoo. The Arawak mixed with the Portuguese and produced a tribe that had half Negro and half Latino, and they called them the Taino tribes. The Taino tribe was invaded by another tribe called the Caribs, who were sadistic and cannibalistic. The Caribs migrated to islands known as the Caribbean. The other group of Olmecs and settled in the Southeast America and became a tribe called the Washoe, which means raccoon people. These people settled the areas of Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Georgia. The Washoe people mixed the Malian Moors of Africa, who also came over. The result of this mixing, pure-blooded black Native Americans called the Yamasee tribe. The Yamasee resided in Georgia, and more of the mother tribe of all dark South, Eastern tribe, Yamasees, are direct descendants of the Olmec through the Washita Moor, and Wichita, who are known as Kikitish, which are referred to as the black Native Americans because their faces they actually get this name by calling them the raccoon people, which unfortunately the stereotype coons is what they call black people comes from that. The Yamasee lived in Georgia where the early mounds were discovered. Macon, Georgia is the home of Harry Tubman and the African American Museum. The Yamasee is the mother tribe of the Creek, the Seminole, the Appalachians, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and the Cherokee. In the 1700s, the British, French, and Spanish mixed into these tribes. In 1715, the Yamasee rose in a rebellion against the English and allied with the Spanish. The Yamasee tribes were really tough. They're some of the oldest and baddest tribes around. They migrated down to Savannah, Georgia, and became outliers under the name Yamacraw. The British began, unfortunately, taking women and children into slavery. The native black American man mixed with the runaway slave. A war broke out between the Yamasee and the British in 1715 called the Yamasee Uprising. Somewhere in about the late 1700s, many tribes were slaughtered, and the remnants of some of these banded together to create an alliance. The newly formed tribes of the Yamasee, the Congaree, were known as the Catawbas. The Catawbas spoke a dialect of ancient Kushite language, which was bits and pieces of the original Olmec African language. The Catawbas lived in South Carolina and were the enemies of the Shawnee and the Iroquois because they had mixed with the French and almost came full-blooded European. And some of the Catawbas joined the Alabama Creeks and mixed with the Spanish, losing much of their African traits. After the Yamasee uprising, Native American power collapsed in Georgia and Alabama, and many of the Yamasee escaped to Florida, where they joined runaway slaves from what later will be called Seminoles. That's a little bit of history, really put together, researched, and thought out. And it describes who we are, how long we've been here, all the different races throughout South America, North America, Asia, put together in a way that simply shows that all of us melanated people, no matter what island you're on, no matter how far you across that sea, we were all coming from the same place. Early Aboriginal Olmecian tribes that date back to when the actual continents were close together, when they were land masses. You didn't even have to float. We've been here. It's one race, the human race, and we need to start to act like that. What's going on, my brothers and sisters of the world? You know, you ever wonder why? You ever looked at why North America, South America, brothers and sisters got that same flavor, that same flair? Why we look alike, act alike, love the same music, eat the same food? You know why? Because we're brothers and sisters. We just got colonized minds. Spaniards came over with the Portuguese and the rest of the European white supremacists and colonized the minds of our brothers and sisters. Got us thinking that we're somehow different. Our cultures our ancestors are the same people. Yes. Good old Olmec tribes. Good old Mesoamerica. Yeah. Those are our ancestors. Those are your ancestors. And we got to get past that. It's the age of Aquarius, man. It's time to get past all of that. It's time to unite. Realize our similarities. Get rid of the colonized mentality. It's just something we have to do. And most importantly, you got to educate yourself. Go do your research. It's not that hard to do. I've done it. You should do it. Hell, I'll even give you a little bit of research, facts of just how Latin America was whitewashed. Goes all the way back to, ironically again, Haiti, a place that seems to be one of the most despised, always somebody trying to do something to those guys. But those guys, they have a lot to do with South America, North America, and the freedoms that we have. That little island, Haiti, back when President Alexander Pétion of Haiti and President Bolivar joined forces to fight the Spanish colonizers. President Bolivia, he actually reneged on his promise. Haiti teamed up with him to fight the Spanish colonizers. He claimed that, hey, you help me, we're going to free all the slaves. We're going to abolish it in the new country. Because, Bolivia's army was 60% black. So what happened? They got together, they fought, they won. But guess what? Bolivar, he didn't keep his promise. He decided that he was going to take and do the whole new nation. Okay, present day Colombia, it was Venezuela, Panama, Ecuador, Bolivia. Yeah, he took that whole nation. And like I said, 60% of the army was black. But he went back on his mentality was to go back on his word. And that began a whitewashing period. From around 1880 to 1930, there was a mass integration of whites from Europe and the banning of black immigrants from anywhere. I believe it was about 10 million Europeans were imported during that period. And I do mean imported. I mean, hell, Brazil even paid for ships to literally go and import millions of white Europeans to whitewash the whole South America. That caste system, that caste system that was imported over from the American white supremacy that saturated Mexico, present-day Mexico, still present-day Mexico. The lighter your skin, the more benefits you get. If you were dark-skinned, you were with those Indians, you were treated differently. Yeah. When they imported all those guys over, they got jobs, they got money, they got everything. And then, of course, the blacks, the Haitians, the ones who actually helped win the war, were ostracized. And it still happens to this day. To the point where you act like, oh, don't say I'm African or I got any African in my blood. No. You see the Dominican Republican guys right now, look exactly like me. Look exactly like their brothers and sisters, their ancestors, but have the nerve to act, oh, I'm not black. Me no negro. It's pathetic. And I think it's time, as black and brown, enough is enough. The truth is out there. You can't lie. History's right there. It was a reason they taught us not to read and beat us and killed us when we tried. Because eventually we would find out. And there's no excuse, none, to continue what you do to this day. Lack of education, nope. Will for ignorance, yeah, that's about what it is right now. And it's time to get past that. Know who you are. Colonizers mentality, you gotta let it go. Go learn your real history. We are brothers and sisters. There's one race, my friend, the human race. Educate yourself. It's time to get on, move on, and come together. What's going on, my brother? I'm here today to talk to my other brothers, my other melanated brothers out there. It's time to stop the bickering, arguing over who's the blackest, who was here first. My Pan-African brothers, my Pan-African American brothers, my Moors, my indigenous Aboriginal brothers. We're all the same, my friend. As far as what's going on with us in this world, we're all in the same boat. Yeah, I'd like to find out who was here first. That'd be great. It's cool. Some can say, yeah, look at the pyramids. Look at all the technology. Look at everything that we brought. I get that. Creative civilization, inventions, everything. But we over here could say the same thing, We could say, look at the Grand Canyon. Look at all the artifacts there that match Egypt. We could say we have more pyramids in America than they do in Egypt. Yeah, we could say that too. We could say, look at Lucia's bones. Look at the bones in Brazil. How far they go back. We could say, look at South Carolina, one of the oldest haplotypes. We could say all of that. But at the end of the day, none of that matters. We're melanated beings, my brother, and we're in the same ship. So let's get together. Keep it moving. Let's know who we are. Now I'll give you a little bit of history from my ancestors, our accounts, so you can know this country that you're dealing with. Let's talk about some reality with the Western history, or shall I say, his story. Do understand that, yeah, there was a slave trade, a bit of a slave trade, but most of that happened far different than what you thought. We were already here. The bulk of melanated people, copper-colored people, were already here. So forget what you heard. For real. 95% of the slave trade went to South America. Only 5% of the enslaved Africans went to North America. We need to even quit saying slaves. We're normal people. Most of the enslaved people that were taken down south were normal, regular people. Yeah, there were some who were crooks, criminals that were slaves and some sort. But no, we were people first. 47% of that even went to the Caribbean, and only 5% again went to North America. 2017, not that far away, right? In 2017, they did a census, and the blacks in the U.S. accounted for about 44 million people. Blacks in the Caribbean, 44 million people. How is that? Exactly. We were obviously here in large numbers before any type of slave trade. And let's just talk about who we are, how we got here. Where were my people? We were in South America and North America. A lot of times people forget Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, all of these places, especially Mexico. Mexico was Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California. Yeah. So who do you think lived there during those times? How did we get here? Conquistadors came to America looking for gold and riches based off of stories like El Dorado, the city of gold. They came to what is now Mexico probably in around like 1521. Cortez destroyed the Aztecs, and Pizarro destroyed the Incan Empire in 1532. These are real dates, real times. These are things that actually happened. But these were conquistadors coming over looking for gold, and they raped and pillaged my ancestors, my current Mexicans. We're the same people. Our ancestors, we share the same ancestors. This whitewashing, this caste system mentality, this colonized mindset, we have to forget that, because that's what separates us. Those same enslavers that enslaved the few African Americans that did come here, yeah, you guys had those same enslavers, those same colonizers. One of the worst was Hernando de Soto. He was one of the most ruthless conquistadors of all time. He came through Florida, brought a bunch of Aboriginals with him, searching for gold, enslaved them. He spent 56 years, 1512 to 1568, fighting natives, my people, within North America. DeSoto carried out a lot of his treachery in the name of Catholicism in Mexico and Christianity in the Americas. You know, they always use church, religion to justify what they do. And he was no different. DeSoto would capture or kill the chiefs of the tribes in front of the community to strike fear in the entire community. They did that with buck breaking, raping of African slaves in the Americas. And they did all these things in the name of the church and the king and queen of Spain. But as fate and karma would have it, during the last year of his life in 1542, DeSoto and his crew all became ill with an unknown disease, and he and most of his men died from it. Slave trading during those times was a two-way street. Conquistadors would sell slaves back to Spain. People don't realize that. It wasn't a slave trade as in they just brought slaves here and people here and enslaved them. They were taking my people who were already here back to Spain. And we were enslaved. And when we got there, that's why if you look at the records, we were called Negroes. Okay, and they labeled us that way. And unfortunately, Moors, black, mixed Arabic men also participated in the slave trades. Yeah, very unfortunate, but there's definite documentation that shows that. And just like in present day America, some black people will sell out their own kind for profit or status. And, you know, it's just sad, but it is what it is. Even back in the day, if you think you're going to do something and you're going to impress somebody that has that idea of white supremacy in their mind, it doesn't matter what you do for you. You're going to get it in the end. Even the great Haitian general who defeated Napoleon thought that he could go back to Napoleon and get his title and rank. Nah. Threw him in jail. And that was it for him. One of the most important things that I think I would like to get across to African Americans, so-called African Americans, black, colored, Negro, who knows what they call us now. But the reality is, us melanated people, we need to understand why they took my people, the Aboriginal Americans that were here, and reclassified them as Negroes or colored so that they could strip them of their nationality, so then didn't have to give us anything. And when the government started to so-called give out reparations, they got rid of us through a paper genocide. That all started with the Virginia Act of 1682. And that was an act that began to reclassify Negroes, Moors, mulattoes, or any Indian, red-skinned or dark-skinned, as one group of people. And this is the beginning of the movement by the American government to change everything to race so we wouldn't have a nationality to claim to. And this was for the purpose of taking away the race of the Aboriginal black people and just reclassifying them as Negroes and blacks so they could take their land, take their benefits, no reparations for us, and just give it to what they call the so-called Native Americans of today. Really was a paper genocide for the blacks in America. And the Dow's roll was implemented shortly thereafterwards. And for you who don't know about the Dawes Roll, go do your research. Okay? Thorough research. Yeah. It was a roll that was put together by the government, where if you went and signed up on this roll, you'd be in line to get the same things that they're giving the tribes today, the so-called Indians today, and not our people, your people, black people. Yeah, that was the beginning of that. And to make matters worse, after they paper genocided us with the 1900 census, changing everything, we used to be called Native Americans. Okay? Mulatto, Native Americans, Indian. Paper genocided us. Went back, changed that, literally scratched it out, because some of it was in pencil, and wrote the word Negro. And once you were reclassified as a Negro, guess what? No benefits for you. And to make it even worse, they open it up for white people, Europeans, to go in and pay $5 to get on that roll. That's where the term $5 Indian comes from today. So they could gut in and get your benefits. And that's why we have so many fake white chiefs that are in this so-called 5 civilized tribes. So I guess the rest of us were uncivilized. Yeah. Really pisses me off when I think about that. You know, one of the things that kind of pisses me off, that never gets talked about, you never see this in a Hollywood movie for whatever reason. They like to act like we were just some passive people, just sit back and watched our wives raped, our children taken away, and we didn't do anything. And see, the slave revolts are not talked about in Western history because of the success of most of them. The only documented slaves that came directly to America from the slave trade, straight from Africa, came to Virginia and the Carolinas, and a couple cases in Alabama. In the early 1800s, New Orleans became a slave trade hub. It reached up to 100,000 slaves at one point. That's why a lot of New Orleans traditions, parades, and events like Mardi Gras, have a lot of African dances and cultures within their parade. But back to what I was saying. The Gullah Indian Wars, which were around 1739 to, I believe, 1859, were one of the biggest reasons that President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act in 1830. This led to the Great Seminole Wars in the early 1800s. And unfortunately, the Seminoles lost that war. But the point is, we didn't just sit back. We fought for our freedom. And shortly thereafter that, the Trail of Tears happened. It wasn't a voluntary act. We fought back. Western lies in history, or his story as I like to call it, would lead you to believe that the Civil War started right after the Indian Removal Act and the Gullah Wars because the North wanted to free the slaves. But that's bullshit. The American government knew its days were numbered, and they started the Civil War for economic reasons, not because they suddenly had a change of heart. Remember Abraham Lincoln? Yeah. I'll tell you his true feelings about blacks. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you a quote directly from him, not me paraphrasing, directly from him. He said, and I quote, "I am not nor ever been in favor of making Negroes voters or jurors. nor of qualifying them for office, nor to intermarry with white people. There must be a position of superiority and inferiority, and I am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race. Yep, good old Abraham Lincoln, Mr. Emancipation Proclamation himself. You know, Juneteenth, yeah, they just gave us that based on his act. But at the end of the day, that's who he was. That's what he really thought about us. And I give you guys this little bit of history so that you can understand we are not where we are by accident. These are things that have been going on for quite a while. And it's very purposeful. So I advise you all, do your research. Understand who you are. How did we get here? But most importantly, what you can do to get out of this situation. Quit arguing with each other, worrying about who's the blackest, who's the most Africanist, who's the most indigenous. We're all melanated brothers and sisters. Our ancestors are the same. And we owe it to our kids to come together, find out who you really are. Can't turn back the clock. But in all civilizations, my friend, they only last about 400 or 500 years on average. America's time is up. And it's time for us to move on. We've been here for thousands of years, living peacefully through most of them. Civilized, you name it, living happily. Let's get back to that. Good day, my good friend. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the issues that I have with history, or shall I call it his story. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have in the world today, is the continued lies about his story. That old adage, the victors get to write the story, that's bullshit. That's an excuse for liars to continue lying. There's no honor in that. And I think some of the problems that we have today stem from that. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to tell the real story. You see, I'm a Moor. I'm not as dark as the rest of my counterparts, but a Moor nonetheless. And you say, what is a Moor? Well, we are Muslims. Some of us are Christian. We're North African. And we've lived on the continent since the beginning of time. And what's significant to his story is our time spent in Spain, conquering it, bringing it out of the Dark Ages. You see, we conquered the Visigoths, the murderous, brutal Caucasians from the north, who eventually traveled to Rome to destroy it as well. But we ran them out of Spain. And we were here from about 700 AD to 1492-ish. And we ruled Spain, the Iberian Peninsula, as it's called in my time. But his story doesn't tell an accurate story. So maybe I'll share some accuracy so you can appreciate the contributions of the original people of Al-Kabalan, which you know is Africa. We came to Spain. It was dark ages. People were living in barns with animals, disease, completely just uninhabitable. So we brought in medicine, alcohol, food, clothes, education, you name it. It's what we did. But that story doesn't get told a lot. But that's why I'm here today, to let you know. Moors had at least 17 universities that we brought in. Some of the best in the world. We brought the street lights, paved roads, modern day Paris and London, all the major cities in Europe got their tech from the Moor civilization. It's what we did. We came and we civilized that region. Like I said, we brought the medicine, the alcohol, basic civilized behavior, even down to taking baths. This wasn't practiced. We had over 170 bathhouses that we created because that was a part of being clean and keeping diseases from coming in the first place. And the irony, even in good old present day America, some of those descendants still don't take bathing seriously. Literally admit that they don't use washcloths. Like, did you learn anything? But like the old saying goes, you can take a horse to the river, but you can't make him drink. But anyway, by around 1492 or so, Christians had taken over Spain. We were forced out and we went on about our merry ways. But that's typically how it happens when you're dealing with the European mentality, that idea of supremacy. Just like in America, come in, show them like the Native Americans did, bring them up to speed, get them going, and what you get is a stab in the back, broken treaty, and ran out of the country. But again, that's just a part of dealing with certain people in the world. In about 1479, Isabel and Ferdinand II led the Christians to finish off the rest of the crew. And they're the ones who actually, hired good old Christopher Columbus. Remember him? A lying, murderous ass. To go to the Americas for gold and fortune. He was promised a lot of things. And ironically, he took one of my brethren, seafarer, who navigate. And, of course, backstabbed him too. But he didn't even reach the Americas. He reached islands and thought he saw Indians and named them Indians. Got back, brought a little bit of gold. He actually went to America, I believe, 3 or 4 times before he even got to the real Americas. And, of course, he brought disease, murderous behavior, and that's just part of what goes on. That's part of what happens as time goes on. You try to help people, you try to do what you got to do. And unfortunately, even some of my kind, once they got to America, they participated in the slave trade as well. And after the word got around about America, then the Catholic Church got involved. Good old Pope Alexander VI signed papal bull inter cartera, which was a decree to colonize and convert everyone. And that's a whole nother story that I will tell, or I will have one of my counterparts tell you. But the point I wanted to make is that, yes, we brought civilization to that area, that land, and our contributions are still felt by the world today. In Spain, Europe, and even the Americas. So, be proud of who you are. Learn your real history. And remember, his story is just an excuse for lies. Have a great day, my friend. You know, I like to give you guys a little bit of a history lesson. Yep. I think part of the problem here in this country is that we don't know our history, and it's sitting right in front of us. And we don't understand the legal history that's right in front of us. And I'd like to make sure that I share that with you all so you understand how we got here. It's not by accident. And a lot of the racism that we deal with in other countries and all over the world, yeah, a lot of it started right here in the good old US of A. How about if I told you 1681 is when race was invented in America for white cats? Like, yeah, there wasn't a white person in America until 1681. Sounds weird, huh? But yeah, it's true. We forget sometimes that back then we were under British rule. You know, colonies. 13 colonies, remember those? Yeah. That's where we were. Maryland and Virginia were the colonies that a lot of labor was needed for tobacco and other laborious crops. The British colonies sent a lot of European indentured servants to America to work off their debt. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of the people that were here working alongside slaves and Aboriginal Native Americans, and that's a whole nother story. But point being, everybody was doing a lot of labor at that time. The indentured servants weren't going through chattel slavery like the blacks were, for sure. But they were out there laboring in the fields just like we were. During this time, slavery was still in full effect for black and the so-called Native Americans. Most people don't realize that prior to the 1600s, poor whites, so-called Native Americans, and blacks, and you know, I like to say so-called because in reality, black folk, we were already here. We did not all come on slave ships. Not even close to that. So that's why you'll hear me use the term so-called Native Americans, because we are those people as well. But we were all in the same boat. And the British elite treated all of us the same way. Now, British laws actually ruled the land at that time. And the law of coverture, as they called it, you know, that was a British law. And it was applied to all men, men only. This was the British law of the land, meaning that if a man was free from his indenturement or a free slave, he could own land and slaves. Yeah, that's right. Some free black men actually owned slaves during this time. Now, they didn't treat them chattel slavery like we were treated, but yeah, they pretty much had slaves. And a lot of people don't know that, but it is true. But it's something that's a part of the history, and it's just something we have to deal with. But anyway, the coverture laws, that meant that they could marry whomever they wanted to. And by the way, black men and white British women marriages were very common. This wasn't an uncommon thing. At some of the labor camps and some of the states, hell, it was 50%. I guess that's why you see a lot of brothers and white women today together. It's always been a thing. But in 1964, that's when the white elites passed a law punishing black and white marriages. But ironically, it encouraged more marriages because the law encouraged the property owners that turned white women into indentured servants for life and their kids until they reached 20 years of age. So instead of making people say, hey, no, we're going to stop this, it actually was a good thing for plantation owners. So they actually encouraged it, because if a white lady married a black man and they had kids, they were all slaves. So, this happened for a while. And, these were the laws that were the precursors to what they call anti-miscegenation laws. And these were the laws that only permitted marriages of persons of African descent, to others. And it didn't care if so-called minorities married each other. It just was something that they put out there. Now, a strange thing happened. In 1681, laws were passed in other counties to counteract the 1664 law that allowed for marriage between British white women and blacks. This law punished the plantation owners, and basically it was trying to get the previous law out there with the whole slaves out of child rearing and all of that. They decided that was a bad thing. Now, this law was the first time the word white was used to separate people along status and socioeconomic boundary. Okay? So that's what I was alluding to earlier when I said, yeah, up until that time, there was no such thing as a white person. But guess what? That law came in and made sure that it established that. Now, what's important is there was a real reason behind passing that law. Okay? And that real reason was because of a rebellion known as the Bacon's Rebellion. Look it up. That happened because the number of poor white non-indentured servants and enslaved blacks and Indians became so high that together they were seen as the same, and together they revolted against the British elite. See, when times got so bad that the indentured free guys and freemen and enslaved married couples, that was producing a lot of people. And they realized that the elites were living like kings and queens, and these people were poor and mad, and laws and things were coming down on them. So guess what? They did a big revolt. They revolted against the British elite. Almost killed all of them. So of course, they realized they made a mistake. So they went with the old divide and conquer scheme. Okay? And, it was one of the ways that they said, okay, you know what? We see this result, and this is a way to separate the poor whites or white trash. And that word came from those times. So they figured they had to, give these people some new titles. Okay? And so when they created this white word, they separated the British wives and the black males or Indian males that were married to them. And now white was a status. And along with that status, you got things. Okay, yeah, you got money, you were able to do more things, and then, of course, if you were black or minority, you got things taken away from you. Now, they didn't give these new whites that gained this socioeconomic power the same rights as the elite, but it was enough for them to come down with the old divide and conquer. And, as we all know, that has been the bane of everything, something that the Europeans used a lot to separate us and get us going. Then after that, there were a whole slew of laws that began to be passed in the colonies aimed at further dividing the laws between melanated people and giving this new group known as white people an advantage. Then entered the age of citizenship and the naturalization process. It was around 1790. All the way up until 1952, you had to be white to be a U.S. citizen. Now think about that. 1952, that's when that stopped. Okay? So this is after the, independence, 4th of July, all of that. The same whites took the same mentality, even after we separated from the British, took the same divide and conquer mentality and built this white man class of elite people all the way up into 1952. I think sometimes people think slavery and all these bad rules was way back then, but no, it wasn't way back then. That's not that long ago. So even if you were white, the naturalization laws favored white males. White women during those times, if they were married to someone other than a white person, they would lose their citizenship, which basically encouraged prejudice and stand with the white man regardless, which allowed him to obviously do whatever he wanted to. And if a minority or an Indian or, just someone from anywhere else married a white man, they could get their citizenship. It's just a part of what they did as far as the laws back then to put everything in their favor. That fear of genetic annihilation, the same thing that's happening now with the Supreme Court. Okay. Roe versus Wade, Planned Parenthood, same thing. White numbers are going down, other minorities are going up, and it just all goes back to that same thing. And these are the things that help perpetuate the white caste system that a lot of Mexican people and other Latinos in the Latin communities grew up on, where if you wanted to escape Mexico, come to America for a better life, you needed to marry a white man. So if you look at some of the great parents and grandparents of a lot of Mexicans and Latinos to this day, they were raised that way. And that caste system is still alive today with a lot of them. Really, it is. All you got to go is go to social media, check it out. Argument after argument after argument about that they were taught, get with somebody white. If the kid was light-skinned, they'd be a celebration. If the kid was dark-skinned, oh, pobrecito negro. I shouldn't be laughing, but it's true. That's what was going on. Still goes on to this day. But that came from somewhere. They didn't just wake up in Mexico and became prejudiced. That whole colonizing, white supremacist mentality that was brought over by the conquistadors, it's the same thing. And it was further perpetuated by these laws over here in America. So I thought that was something that you guys should know and at least know where it comes from, because a lot of things aren't just coincidence. Okay. But, this is why the present day Supreme Court is such a big deal. As you see, they're changing laws back to the old ways, which will, inevitably discriminate against minorities and possibly bring right back what we've started. So, again, a little education there for you. Go look up some of this stuff, and you'll find that most things in this country are not by accident. It's an actual reason. There are actual laws on the books that have gotten us to where we are. And it's up for us to quit arguing with each other. All of this trap music, misogynistic foolishness that you see the young generation doing, all of this killing and just not even understanding who they are. They really need to get past that. And we all as a people, black, white, any melanated person, it doesn't matter. We're a human race. Yeah, they may have invented race back then in the 1600s, but at the end of the day, we're one race, the human race, and we shall overcome. Yeah. We'll talk about Egypt a little bit now. Can't believe that we have to deal with the ignorance. The Arab invaders. You're living in a house that was built by someone else. You're digging up our ancestors and lying about who they were. Like, that may have worked 200 years ago, 100 years ago maybe, when information wasn't shared. There's an information superhighway right now. You look stupid, dumb. Doesn't matter if you come back and quote some other anthropologist who quotes another anthropologist and backs up another racist anthropologist. That is just dumb. It's embarrassing. So stop doing it. People need to realize that this is the age of Aquarius. And the days of misinformation, all of that time is past. The most important thing that we can do right now is to address the misinformation. This whole history is told by the victors bullshit, an excuse to continue to tell lies. Because the reason there's so much hate in the world right now is people are lying too much. So let's talk about the truth. That's what needs to happen now, the truth. And one of the subjects that bothers me is the continued lies about Egypt. The obvious lies about Egypt. The fact that a major celebrity, a well-liked funny man, states the obvious, which should be obvious right now, that Egypt, which is located in Africa, okay, we love separating South Africa, North Africa, Sub-Saharan, all of that bullshit. Egypt is in Africa. Ain't in the Middle East, and by the way, the Middle East is too. It's on the same damn tectonic plate, but whatever. That's a whole nother story. But Africa, that the fact that this man has to take some scrutiny because he stated the obvious led me to come back in the spirit of a brother from back in the day, to connect with a brother that's living today, to point this bullshit out so that we keep going. Let me just but I'm going to start, because I don't have time. People's attention span is just too damn short these days. So this is what I would want you to do. Anyone out there that's interested in listening and learning about what is actually true, what actually has happened in Egypt from the beginning to the end, I'm going to kick out a couple names. You can go check out some of their books, their videos. Then you'll actually know about Egypt, America's tied to Egypt, the whole shebang-a-bang, without anyone lying and trying to sell some bullshit story. If you are interested in understanding Egypt, its history, its past history, maybe even some of the present, go check out Henry Clark. Check his videos, books. This gentleman is amazing, and may he rest in peace. But we need to know about these guys. We're sitting around talking about these other idiots running around, celebrities, what they're doing, what they bought. Go learn your damn history. Don't let these guys' work be in vain. Dr. Ben Johansson. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. Love you, Dr. Ben. But definitely, go check him out. Check out his books. This is definitely someone that you will definitely want to hear everything he has to say. And he's a funny guy, and he's very serious, very knowledgeable. Anything to do with Egypt, ancient Egypt. Ivan Van Sertima, another one. Same thing, Egypt, the Americas. Plenty of books, plenty stories. Not biased. Facts. That's what I love about these guys. Sheikh Anta Diop, same thing. Facts. Check out their work. Dr. Ranuki Rashidi, same thing. And all of these brothers have passed on to their ancestors. And they did a lot of work in their days. And believe me, the so-called scholars, anthropologists, Egyptologists, boy, are they glad that these guys aren't on the planet anymore. Because they were afraid of them when they were here. These guys ran circles around them in every debate they ever did. And my man Clark loved his quote. He doesn't even do debates. He does debate with his equals, and everyone else he teaches. That's his quote. I love that quote. Go check out these guys if you want a deep, real understanding of Egypt. I don't even begin to have a little bit of the knowledge that these guys have, but they exist. Browder and Khamenei, these guys still live now, and they speak as well. Very intelligent guys. So let's just start there for you idiots who love coming into the comment section of any thread or podcast to spew trollism and ignorance. Yeah. Go check out those guys' work if you got any questions about anything that I have to say. Okay. Let's just make it quick. Just so we get to the point. Pre-dynastic period. Dynastic period. Upper and lower Egypt was combined. These are the periods where the real people came through. That's where lots of the pyramids were built. A lot of them were actually been told to be even built earlier than that. But for sure, some of the great marvels happened then. And guess what? The people that were building those pyramids, they damn sure weren't aliens in a spaceship. Because for whatever reason, the white supremacist mentality, anything that's done that you can't explain that's so awesome, a black person couldn't have done that. Oh no. The hell with that mentality. And I don't know why people even fall for that crap. No, it wasn't aliens. And just because you have the History Channel that has a whole segment to anything that has to do with Egypt, It's ancient aliens that did it. Fuck out of here with that. Black people that look just like me did that. Sorry. Get over it. Another thing that I think you guys should know, go do the research on this. The pyramids, they're not sarcophagus. That's dumb. I get it. In the beginning, yep, that's what it could have been. You found a tomb or two and got into that. No, but that's not what those things were built for, man. They were energy centers. Water ran under that pyramid. Hydroelectric, limestone, gold cap, energy. There's energy in it when you go in it to this day. Go study some real stuff like that. That's some stuff to debate and talk about. Because those are the things that, if you're going to talk about the pyramids, learn what they were used for. Have those debates. To debate whether it's a damn tomb and some aliens built it, that's stupid. And to think for 1 second, a bunch of white dudes who would have gotten so much melanoma kicking off 2 years after they were working on it, it's just dumb. Dark-skinned people built that. The only ones who could have lived in the region. The only ones who could have been around any of that. So, enough already, man. It's getting stupid. And that goes back to Egyptology to begin with. Who started that? Guess what? When you do your research, yeah, the good old Vatican, the good old Catholic Church, who's ahead of all of this. And when you look back at that, unfortunately, religion has always been the root of what seems to be more evil than anything. Egyptology, yeah. Why do you think all of the gold and all the artifacts and things like that are in Vatican? Half of it you can't see. All the scrolls, anything that would say that this is black, that points towards the actual people who built it, yeah, guess where it's at? Enough of this already, man. It's old and dumb. And when you look at it, people like Mansa Musa, went back to the Americas. Africa and America's been trading for centuries upon centuries, thousands of years. That's why you see so many Egyptian artifacts showing up in America. That Grand Canyon, as soon as you bring that up, oh, that's a hoax, that didn't happen. But yet, the Grand Canyon is marked off. You can't even go through the whole thing. Why is that? Why is that? Anything that happens in there, the Smithsonian comes in, grabs it, oh, it's gone. Same thing, man. Hiding. But that information superhighway, it's here. It's been here. And it's not just used for twerking videos and stupid comments and TikTok dumb bullshit. It can actually be used to go and research papers and pull up books and do smart things if you use it. So, what you used to do to the slaves, oh, we're not gonna let them read, won't let them learn anything. Those days are over. Information is there. Willful ignorance is in full effect, but not everybody's ignorant. And there's a lot of people that use it for the knowledge that they should do. But like I said, Smithsonian has covered up any and everything that ever had to do with telling the truth, whether it's Egypt, the Americas, Indians, the black Indians that actually are Indians, along with the Native Americans that you see today. We all live together. So I'm not going to go the bashing route of my red-skinned brothers. But there's black-skinned brothers too. But again, Smithsonian covers all of that up. It's just a part of what we do. And then when you try to say, hey, well, it's technology now. If you think that those mummies were some Caucasians, all right, let's pull some DNA on them. Oh, no, we can't do that. Oh, we can't even let you get a piece of skin to do that. I mean, it's comical. It's embarrassing. Me, I don't really care to debate any of that ignorance. Simply here to let my brothers and sisters know who they are, who we were, and our ancestors are still running through your blood. Know that no matter how much they lie, the facts are there, the truth is there. You can go through and literally you can see the chisel marks on the Negroid features of most statues. They hide them in the basements of the museums. They lie about who's who, the fake Nefertiti bust. I mean, like, really? That person was not even close to most of the real queens of Egypt and things that happened in Egypt. But because she has features of which Caucasians want to assume that are Caucasian features, Africa has all features. Okay? Like, this is just stupid. But anyway, you can break off all the noses that you want to. You can Napoleon chipping and chiseling and shooting off the nose of the Great Sphinx. It doesn't matter. We know who it is. So at the end of the day, just want my black people, my melanated brothers and sisters all across the continents to know you are from us, we are from you. All the way back to America, South America, Asia, we were everywhere. Be proud of who you are. And that idea of white superiority and all of that ignorance, that's all it is, an idea. Know who you are.